to be successful, as we've spoken about already, you must be a successful storyteller. You need to craft stories that are on purpose, on message, and illustrate what it is that you're talking about. No matter how much you love a story, if it doesn't actually land that message, it needs to go. You need to invest in finding hidden stories, elements that surprise and delight an audience so that they don't tap out because they've already heard about this before. And you need to become a story catcher. Welcome back to the next episode of Speaker Driven Business, the podcast. And in this one, I'm actually going to go deep into why I have a love-hate relationship with TED Talks. Now, before you start throwing rocks at me or deciding that you're opting out of the podcast forevermore, I want you to stick with me with this one so you can understand why it is that I have a love-hate relationship. Now, the first part is the love. I am like most of the Western world. I am completely obsessed with a great TED Talk. I just find that there are less and less of them being produced. Having just been to a number of TEDx events over the last several months, what I can say is that the majority of people are not nailing it. It's almost like with the TEDx events, we're losing the original connection to the TED Talks. Now, this is not about a debate about how strict they are, how the guidelines are, what it is that you are and aren't allowed to do. This is actually, I've got a real bee on my bonnet about the fact that we're actually not harnessing the full power of the TED Talk as it was designed. So in some of the recent events that I've been to, some of the mistakes that I've seen is that there actually isn't a single big idea. There's a rambling tied together of thoughts and ideas, and usually around something that could be quite revolutionary, but that doesn't actually land. There's a number of people, especially in the TEDx stages, that are getting very pitchy in their speeches. One speech in particular, who everybody was like, she's amazing, what she's doing is incredible. And yes, it is incredible. But more than a third of the speech was content to pitch her business. That is a no-no, and it should not happen. And it actually ties into my foundational obsession with the principle that says quite simply that you should never pitch or sell from stage. Now, there are definitely environments that you should do that. And I am starting to hook into someone who is so incredibly powerful in doing that. But truly speaking, especially if you're on a TED Talk stage, this is not your time to pitch. This is your time to bring a big idea worth spreading to the stage in a way that people fall in love with it. It is not about pitching. The other thing that I'm seeing in a lot of the TEDx stages is that there's chunks but no flows. Now, TED Talks are designed on a through line. So when something feels chunky and jolty, it hasn't been developed properly. And it actually keeps you from fully absorbing what it is that they're bringing to the stage. The other thing as well is that people are very assumptive and using too much jargon. So by assumptive, what I mean is that there are assumptions that you understand my world and you can see straight into it. So people are using metaphors and expressions that are very specific to their discipline or their industry or the place where they're speaking from. And that can make it really hard for an audience to follow. There's also a lot of jargon starting to come in. Now, if something is jargon or an acronym, you need to make sure that your audience can follow that with you. Don't just assume that they know it, right? There's also an increasing propensity to bring ideas to the stage that are not really big ideas, right? So, and I feel I'm trying not to sound like a cow when I say this, but a big idea actually needs to be something that gets my attention. There was somebody who presented a recent one with what they're doing with seaweed to save the Great Barrier Reef. It's extraordinary work. That's a big idea. Last year, we saw a presentation at one of the events, which was they're building on bio frames to reconstruct breasts so that we can get rid of silicone implant. That's a big idea. The thought that you can use adversity to translate into power is not a big idea, but the experience that comes with it should be on a big scale. So there's all these things that really get me. However, there are approximately 8 TEDx events held somewhere in the world every day, and more than 18,000 talks delivered in any 12-month period through TEDx Talks. One of the events we went to recently, we were one of 42 TEDx events happening around the world on that date. It is incredible. very much in the TED style. So TEDx events are held in the likeness of TED talking stages. So it therefore stands to reason that if you want to take the TEDx stage, you need to invest in becoming a TED-style speaker to be able to align yourself with the most powerful format of speaking in the world. Now, to do that, though, you have to first embody the true essence of being a TED-style speaker, and that is to present a single idea supported well through story, which delivers new or actual information to stimulate change and open our mind to new possibilities. That is what a TED Talk is meant to do. And whilst the larger TEDx stages and the really well-run TEDx stages absolutely bring fabulous speakers into our world, and speakers who have their speeches go viral either on the TED platform or just from the TEDx stage, the smaller TEDx is producing people concerned with showmanship rather than inspiration. People are concerned with pitching rather than education. They're failing to deliver new or actual information. They're failing to stimulate a change in thinking and open our mind up. We are simply filling spots in a lot of these stages and seem to have little grasp on why TED Talks have actually taken over our world with such ferocity. There is a reason for it, and it's being lost in many TEDx licensees adapting the interpretations as far as they can within their guidelines. Now, what's also really interesting to me is people turn up to a TEDx stage or TEDx event or pitch themselves at a TEDx event thinking that it's a TED event. It's a licensed TEDx event. TEDx is a license which allows you to run an event in the likeness of TED. So there is still room for the current licensee or the local licensee to meld it their way. There is still room for people to not actually deliver the training and the coaching and the advice that you need to really nail it. And I think this is what is behind what happens with what they call the bucket list effect. And there's two elements of the bucket list effect that I want to speak into right now. The first of the bucket list effects is that people will tell me that they want to be a TED speaker, that they want to do a TED talk. When I actually ask them why, other than it's on my bucket list or other than it's something I've always wanted to do, they can't actually articulate why. And this is the first thing to go wrong. If you can't articulate why, even if it's not the specifics of the speech itself, but if you can't articulate why this matters to you other than it's just something that you want to do, then you're starting from the wrong place. The second thing is that when you start from that place, what happens is that you actually create something that is not something you're proud of. So almost every day I hear from someone that their goal is to become a TED speaker, and I get it. I really get it. Like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. But what it is actually what really gets me with this is not just that most people can't articulate why it's on their bucket list, but that means that they don't take advantage of it. So the amount of people that I meet that tell me that they've done a TEDx talk, and when I say amazing, share the URL with me because I love TED Talks, I'll say, oh no, I don't want to find it. Oh no, I actually wish it was alive. Oh, please don't watch it. You can listen to it, but don't watch the video. Or you can, I'd love for you to listen, but just wait till I'm not in your presence. Like the amount of people that have done a TED Talk and they're not proud of it is astonishing. And this is where I have the love-hate relationship. And we are going to unpack a lot of this at different times over this podcast series because it fascinates me. How can something so viral, so wanted by so many people, create stages where people are not proud of their work, where people are not proud of what they've produced, where people are not ready to take to that stage because they haven't thought beyond the bucket list tick? So we're going to actually deep dive this at various points along our journey, but so that you know that I do actually really love a great TED Talk and the original intentionality behind creating the platform, I'm going to leave you with some of the ways that I constantly get people to take their TED Talking off stage. And these are the ideas that we can take away to benefit our own speaking craft. So let's get ready. The first thing is that a TED Talk is one single idea, conversation, and theme. TED Talks are for a maximum of 18 minutes when they were first created, and right now the average is 11 minutes, and they're bringing it back, I was told this week, to possibly even less. It is important that it is a single idea, that you stay on track, that you do not overwhelm your audience. And if it doesn't support your one idea, the story, the research, the data, the things that you love must be cut. Everything has to stay on track. It's one single idea, conversation, and theme. That's the first thing I want you to take into your everyday world. The second thing that I want you to take away from a TED Talk is the ability to unlock logical steps. So don't try to run before you can crawl. And what I mean by this is you need to build where you're taking people one step at a time from start to finish. Don't jolt them. Don't jump over crevices. Don't try to take them somewhere too fast. It's actually logical steps on a pathway they can follow. You must ensure that the next steps build on the previous steps, that they link well. Instead of saying what we did next or the next step we took, use progressive language. For example, we then took X and built on this by doing Y and creating Z. So use creative step-building language that helps people move along with you. That is one of the most precious things to take out of really powerful TED Talks. Number 3 is offer really vivid examples. What happens in a great TED Talk is the examples are so vivid and so compelling that even if it's something we haven't experienced before, all of a sudden it's as if we know it to be true. Now, you need to make it impossible for your audience not to engage. Now, this is not necessary through the visuals and having incredible PowerPoints, but through the examples you provide and the stories that you tell. Don't talk from theory. Talk from experience. Draw on case studies that are actually yours, that you actually give validity to what you're speaking about. Use examples. People look in or lock in more deeply with shared experience than theoretical explanations. Really remember that. Sharing experience is far more powerful than just theoretical explanations. Now, with some of the topics that you will use in a TED Talk, you are going to have to bring theory of research and data into it, and I get that. But don't make it just about that because you will fail. Okay, so that's the third thing. Offer vivid examples. The fourth thing I want you to take from the TED stage into your everyday speaking is that TED Talks are based on a through line. We touched on this in the previous episode. What is the point of what you were saying? Get really clear. Make sure every element supports that through line, that clear message, that central argument, that controlling argument, that central idea. The litmus test that we use with people is everything I am about to say, is it on purpose, on target, on message? If it's not on purpose, on target, on message, if it doesn't fully support moving people along a logical pathway, it really needs to go. Great TED Talks have no tangents. People are held in tight from beginning to end. There's no off-ramping. There's no tangents. There's no expecting people to go off with you and come back with you. You keep people on the through line. They move forward with you, and they're with you from beginning to end. The fifth thing that I want you to take away from a great TED Talk is that you must support through story. So to be successful, as we've spoken about already, you must be a successful storyteller. You need to craft stories that are on purpose, on message, and illustrate what it is that you're talking about. No matter how much you love a story, if it doesn't actually land that message, it needs to go. You need to invest in finding hidden stories, elements that surprise and delight an audience so that they don't tap out because they've already heard about this before. And you need to become a story catcher. Catch them, note them, and flesh them out in your own words so you can bring them into this most powerful story that you've got through your TED Talk, through your TED style talk. The other thing with this is that not all stories are created equal. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have big stories to have impact. You can have short stories, springboard stories, micro stories. You can tell parts of stories, moments in stories. You don't have to tell the whole story, but just make sure that you become masterful at storytelling. And the sixth and final thing that I want you to understand is that great TED Talks end with a call to action or a call of the world or a view of the world that is possible if this bold idea were true. So always have a resolution, a solution, an outcome to close out the story, the conversation, or the presentation. And what I mean by this, it's not a pitch. It's not a call to action as in buy my thing, do my stuff. It is literally a call to action, a rising of arms, a purposeful ending and closing off of this thing so that people know what they should do next. As I said, it's not pitching or selling, do my thing, buy my thing. It is what is it people should think about or do next. Bring in a view of a possible alternate reality. These are the ways that we end with a resolution. Also, if you are pitching, the one thing I want you to take away from a TED Talk is that you need to end with a crystal clear invitation to the next stage or a crystal clear ask of what you need. One thing, one ask, that's it. You need to take from the TED Talk that it is one single bold idea, bold move, bold element that you're speaking about. And if you can take those things from TED talking into your everyday talking, you will find that your communication starts to elevate without you even feeling as though you're trying. Super, super important. So run with me here. We're going to unpack in different episodes in the upcoming seasons of a Speaker-Driven Business podcast. We're going to continue to unpack this love-hate relationship I have with the TED Talk and how we get everyone to embrace the true intentionality and gifts that come with understanding the TED Talk structure.